Welcome to LDC Now Episode Fur. Fur. Is that a typo, guys? Or is
I
fur?
I hope so. I hope it's a typo.
Sounds a little hairy in here right now.
I like it.
We are established by and for the Linux Distro Community and supporters of free and open source software. Don't forget to interface with our magnificent mothership at linuxdistrocommunity.com. You can chat with us on IRC, join us on the forums, or even shoot at us on game nights. It's about damn time for LDC Now.
How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Kleptos, how you hanging in there?
The best as I damn can, man. I do like Episode Fur. It sort of has a nice little ring to it. I dig it.
Yeah, we're gonna be trying to come up with, I guess, some little code names for the show, as it seems to be the trend. So let's get a little bit into what we're doing this week. We have a really cool show for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Python because I'm not dead yet. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. In our newbie segment, we're actually going to talk a little bit about file systems and different types and what sets them apart. Our buddy Irish here is going to talk about ClamAV during our app pick. And not to mention, we have an interview actually with one of the founders of the LDC. And we can welcome you in now, Preacher. He's going to be joining us for the show.
Thank
How
you.
you doing?
Glad to be here.
Cool. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming in today. And what do you guys think about the show so far? What do you guys think is gonna go with the show?
I think it's going to be a very good show. We'll definitely get through a lot of stuff today. Hopefully it'll be quite informative.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kleptos.
No, that's good. We're going to be talking about file systems. We're going to be talking about Python. And as always, no one knows everything about Linux. And so it's good to sort of be informed about it. And maybe I'll learn something myself.
Yeah, I definitely think that I'm going to learn a lot from this app pick this week. I don't know much about ClamAV. I've never really used it, but we can get into that a little bit later. Preacher, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not really. I think it's going to be a nice show. Like I said earlier, just glad to be here and glad the shows are continuing. Glad we've got people willing to do the shows.
Yeah, we're glad to do it ourselves, too. If you guys want, we can jump right into the app pick now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's do it.
All right, the app that I decided to bring up today is it's called ClamAV. It's an antivirus program that is across platforms, so you can download this on Linux, obviously, OS X, and even in Windows. So it's a very good program. We'll definitely put some the site to download it if it's not already in your repos. But just a note that it is a terminal one, but I did manage to find a GUI for it. So let me show you what it can do.
Yeah, I think that's good. I definitely came into Linux hearing the myth that there's no such thing as viruses, but like anything, if there's a way to exploit it, somebody's going to try to do it. So I definitely feel like for people who are server administrators or stuff, some kind of antivirus to avoid rootkits and stuff is a good idea.
I think also as far as ClamAV is concerned, I think it is more for just checking files in general when you're moving across different servers, be it Linux servers or Windows servers, and just good to have where you can just manually scan things or scan a folder to see if everything is on the up and up. In general, we don't have much in the way of viruses. We do have some malware designed for servers and designed for web servers and things like that, but in general, Linux doesn't have to deal with that. But it's good to have if you're working on Windows servers in general or Windows desktops.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the very first time I came across this was actually on a program in Windows called Portable Apps, and it was just a virus scanner, and it was very good. It was almost on par with like CCleaner and stuff like that. But let me get right into it. So obviously, you have to, refresh all your databases for your viruses. So in the terminal, you would just do sudo. You do have to be in root for this, and then fresh clam.
The fresh clam.
Correct. Yeah, I just love the names for this. So this would pull down all the databases and make sure that everything is successfully updated. So to run the program, all you would just do is clam AV, and then you would just put in the pathway to whatever database or whatever folder you want to do. So I'll do a lot of downloading. So we'll see if there's anything anything bad that's in my downloads folders.
So while you're doing that, it sounds like you can actually. So if I wanted to check my whole system, I could of course just use the root file system, or the root directory. But it seems like you're saying that I could actually scan a specific directory if I don't want to waste the whole day scanning 70 gigs of stuff or whatever.
Correct. And I'm sorry, I need to make a side note. It's actually clam scan and then the pathway to whatever folder it is.
Yeah, I think while you're doing that, that's really interesting to be able. I think it's great because I remember my days on Windows. I had to scan the whole computer, and I couldn't just scan a directory. So being able to do that, I could scan my binaries. I could scan. That's really cool.
I think also the idea of really in general, the difference really between Windows and Linux as far as virus goes is the Linux architecture and our file system, and really the permission side of things. In Windows, most file extensions are executable. You can just run them. And now with Windows 7, they can ask you, do you really want to run this? Do you really want to? And you say, yes, of course you will. And then you run the virus. And so with us, it comes down to executables, whether or not we want them to be executables. And I think that's the big difference between us and the Windows OS.
Oh yeah.
I also feel like the ability to, like you said, change permissions on folders, but also that if it's gonna run beyond my user directory or whatever, it's gotta be run with sudo. So a lot of viruses don't have the same ability to infect my machine because they don't have administrative access.
Yeah, exactly. I just did a scan on my downloads folder and my home folder, and it'll show known viruses, engine version, scanned files, and it will show if there's any infected files. Luckily, I don't have any, thank goodness. But let me show you the GUI form. Actually, if you do download it from their site, you actually do get a graphical user interface for this. So you don't, if you're like a little intimidated with the terminal, I can show you the GUI form. In Arch, it's called clam TK, and I will show that to you right now.
That's cool. I think do we know I'm sure most because Arch we tend to split things up a little bit, but I'm assuming that if it comes off the site and the GUI is included, that maybe for many distributions it might actually be all in one package as well.
Yeah, you can in the AUR. It's you can just there's different extensions for this. The GUI is actually created off of the Perl language, so it's a pretty nice GUI right now.
That's cool. Yeah, I definitely think that if I were I've been thinking about buying another machine for some server purpose, and maybe if I've got myself out there like that, and I have I might have stuff on there or have stuff available where I could be infected by a rootkit or something, that would be a great application for me to look into and invest in.
Especially if you're running wine applications. So, there's a real slim chance of you getting a virus via wine, but it doesn't help to check anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even that it's there in the back, even if it's just sitting there, I don't want to give that to copy something off of that I'm using in wine and give it to somebody and turns out they have a problem. It's good for me to check so I can cross-check if I give something to a Windows user.
Exactly. Plus, you have to, if anything runs code, most likely a hacker can make a virus for it. Even your car, microwave, anything that can has a Wi-Fi connection and runs any type of OS, you can put a virus on it. So that's a good, nice way of looking at things. So you can be extra careful instead of just going around clicking on every which link out in the world.
But I like clicking the links.
I'm sure, because it's that pretty blue.
It's pretty sad that, all the Windows users out there, they just go to any site they want to and they click on stuff. I mean, they get emails, say, click on this video. It's a video of my friends and, our family reunion. And you click on it and then you get, infected. And so we have a lot of stopgaps, with Linux. But again, information is golden. It's good to have. And so, we run programs like this, not because we always need it, because it's just good to have. Information is power.
Yeah, speaking of Windows users, and one thing that I remember was when I was on Windows, how much time I spent either running the scans or checking for malware or even defragging my drives. And I think maybe that's a good place to jump into our next conversation about file systems. All right, so as I was saying about file systems and talking about defragging my Windows drives, I was on an NTFS file system. So what that does is it might move the defragging will be moving around and organizing the data on the partition table. But what some of the things that we don't have to run into on Linux is actually defragging especially with the ext4 file system. Because one thing I have learned, which really was amazing to me, is that when you are defragging your drive, the actual mechanical heads are moving back and forth a lot. So you actually, if you're constantly defragging your drives or working with Windows systems, you're actually breaking down your hardware, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I could imagine that. I know some people in Windows that are just paranoid about defragging. They want everything to run like butter on their system, which of course is never going to happen. But you think about it, it's grinding all the time, and defrags on Windows take a long ass time, and so most times they run it overnight. And so if you can imagine them doing this every couple of weeks, just grinding on your hard drive, especially the old kind of hard drives, not SSDs, it could do a lot of damage. I can imagine.
Yeah, I have a Windows partition for my classes, and I still have to run my defrag and all my scans overnight because they would just take too long.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things too about file systems is there's a ton of them out there. I don't know if I personally use ext4 for most of my drives. I know some people use Btrfs. Some people might use extension 2 for a couple of them. But what file systems do you guys run for your own machines?
I just run the standard extension 4. I have tried Btrfs when I did move over to OpenSUSE about a year ago. That was really nice, and I have tried when I was on my Linux Mint machine. I did try LVM, which was nice too. But extension 4 is definitely the way to go, I think.
As for me, man, I love me some Btrfs. Okay, it's in development. It just gets better and better. But the cool thing about it, besides the whole sub-volume system and the snapshotting, is that if I just removed a file, I can just go mount a Btrfs snapshot and get that file back. Hell, now in OpenSUSE, if something goes wrong with my system, I can go from boot at grub and boot from an old snapshot by date and by time. And so it's nice. And again, it's a copy on write system. and it's just wonderful. It's not as wonderful as ZFS is, but it's getting there in my humble opinion, and I've had less and less problems with it as I've been using it now for a few years now. So it's been great for me.
Preacher, you got anything you want to add about your file systems that you're using?
Well, I still use the XT4. It's served me well, so I still use it.
One of the things I like about the Linux file systems as well compared to the Windows file systems like FAT32 or NTFS and stuff is the POSIX file permissions. I think are a big thing for our file systems. What we can set, read, write access, etc. to everything.
Also, I also another thing that's really important about that, the difference between ext2, ext3, ext4, and the journaling that is offered. And so if you have some kind of hard reboot, let's say your power goes out in your apartment, on Windows, that could be kind of harsh, and you could lose some stuff. But on ext4 now, with journaling, you can go back and get all those files back, and then it has that lost file system.
Yeah, I did want to just correct myself for a moment. I mentioned NTFS in POSIX permissions. NTFS actually does have POSIX file permissions. So I just wanted to update that.
Somewhat basic, but yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's important to, like, while we're here to not, I mean, it's to the best of my ability not give out, misinformation. So definitely important to clarify.
Yeah, just also, there's a file system that's on the BSDs called Z file system, and they're starting to port that over to Linux now, and it's from what I've gathered, it's going to be on par, if not a little bit better than ButterFS.
Oh, it is definitely better than ButterFS. I mean, I've run ZFS on my FreeNAS systems and other systems, going back to FreeBSD I used back in the days. I mean, it's the best thing since sliced bread and vodka. But, like I said, ButterFS is in development. But ZFS is awesome, but you need some RAM. You definitely need some RAM to run ZFS. You can't be running that, 2 gig of RAM on ZFS. It's just not going to happen. But if you got the RAM, it runs butter smooth.
Yeah, probably like a terabyte hard drive and at least 4 to 8 gigabytes of RAM for sure. I think that would probably be nice specs for ZFS for sure.
So one thing too is while we're talking about this, is I know that to a new user, a lot of this information might be unclear or it might be hard for you to know what the differences are. And one thing that I find useful when I'm looking up new information is even if you can go to like a site like Wikipedia or your favorite wiki to learn about file systems, you can get a lot of information and it'll really help you choose what file system you want to use, whether you're going BSD and you want to use UFS or ZFS, or you want to go ext4 or ButterFS. I think there's a lot of information out there, and there's so much more than we can actually cover in one segment.
Oh yeah, there's been books written on just file systems and which ones, and comparative, and it's just, there's no way 3 or 4 people or even 10 people can cover all the file systems in one podcast.
No, that's true, and also PDQ brings up excellent point in the chat room about de-encrypt and really encryption in file systems now. And it's not as taxing as it used to be. And I think really when it comes down to it, if you're running ext3 or ext4 on Linux, you're golden. You're gonna have no problems at all. I just think that ext, the system itself, is superior to NTFS. NTFS has way too many permissions problems and locking and things like that. So I think that it's a superior system. And if you look at Mac OS and their file system, it's sort of a take on the old Unix style file systems.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't talk much about was Macintosh file systems. But I think that it's important to let people know not to be afraid when you're going in and you're installing your Linux system for the first time, that you're doing something like Gentoo or Arch, or you're building Linux from scratch to learn, and you've got to actually use a program like Parted or CFDisk to set your partitions and your file systems and your formatting. Don't be afraid. Definitely do your reading. It's not as complex as it seems, and usually if you do a little research before, it'll come out really straightforward.
Yeah, I've had people, they just put a brand new Ubuntu on their system, and they're telling me, I can't burn CDs with Ubuntu, and it's right there built into the system. And so, do take the time to go and look on RC, look on wikis, and look in the forums. I mean, just take a couple hours at best and look at some of the options that Linux has. It's wide, it's vast, and there's a lot to offer, and we'll never use it all, but it's excellent, and it's superior, and I believe that it's the best thing since sliced bread and vodka.
Hey, you really like vodka, don't you?
I'm a gin man, if I'm going to be honest, but vodka is pretty awesome, too.
I was saying, go ahead, Morning.
Oh, no, go ahead if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, I was saying just, whatever distro you fall on, it is good to read up on it, because this is going to be your daily driver. You're going to be doing papers, most likely YouTube videos and other stuff like that. But it's always good to, in case something breaks, is to take like what Kleptos says, take a few hours, go on to read some wiki pages or go and find some good YouTube videos on what's built in, because I know there's a lot of good videos and information out there on the internet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing that I hear sometimes, some people in my normal life will say that Linux is hard because you've got to do all this research. But if you take the second to look out there, Linux is such a big community now that usually it's not hard to look up stuff, especially if it's file systems or how to set a permission or how to change an owner of a group or change an owner of a file. I mean, or
yeah,
group.
If you're lazy, you could just go to YouTube and they have a ton of tutorials. Look, when I used Linux in the late 90s, okay, there was no real Google, out there. All you had was one thick book on Slackware, and it was, read like man pages, and you just had to learn by experimentation and breaking things and fixing things. And so it's a hell of a different world out there today. It's just a plethora of information for you on Linux to find out about and to learn and experiment with, and so have fun with it, for God's sake.
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a question for you guys. Last week we talked a little bit about window managers and desktop environments, and just to kind of follow up, since we kind of brushed on a lot of different topics and there was a lot that we couldn't cover, I was curious what you guys are using for an environment and some highlights of your user environment or desktop environment or window manager that keeps you coming back.
I guess I can go first. Normally I am on i3 window manager. It is a tiling window manager. It's a very good window manager. We'll definitely show you guys what that looks like in a future episode. But I've told a few people from the LDC community that I would be trying awesome window manager, and I have been since I guess Wednesday or Thursday, and it's definitely it's a very good window manager. It's a dynamic tiling manager. It has different layouts that you can create or use instead of in i3, where you just do it manually yourself. So it's a very nice, well polished window manager, and I'll definitely try to keep on awesome for at least as long as I can.
I'm currently using Mate, and in this video you can see that. The kind of Windows environments and DEs that I like are ones that are kind of GNOME 2 style, but yet very, very configurable, and you have a lot of options available to you, and you can sort of do it the way you like. And that's just my style. I like configurability, but I also like something snappy and fast and just works straight out of the box with not much finagling. And also I like LXQT. That's sort of coming up in the Linux world today, where it's kind of based off LXDE, but on a Qt format, Qt system. And really, in general, I mean, you do have the sort of main things, whether it's GNOME, KDE, or etc. But it's all about preference and what you're interested in and what really works for you. What about you there, Morningstar?
I was going to talk a little bit about mine, but before we moved on, I was curious if Preacher wouldn't mind sharing what he uses as well.
Yep. I'm one that likes the eye candy, so I stick with GNOME Shell for personal reasons, and I like Enlightenment as well. I bounce back and forth. I don't really worry with if the desktop environment window manager is heavy or light. I try to stay current with my hardware so I don't have to worry with those things. But to each their own, There's certainly enough choices to go around. Someone should find something they like.
So you said eye candy, so you like the Compiz and all that kind of stuff?
Not so much Compiz, but I like to be able to make things look, what in my eyes is pretty. May not be, pretty in your eyes, but after all, I'm setting it up for me, no one else.
Exactly. I think a lot of people miss that point. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, whoever uses the system. So you're going to be looking at it every day. So might as well make it eye appealing for you.
Yeah, when I'm at a public internet place, whatever. I like when I boot my system up to be just as pretty as the guy, booting up his Mac machine or Windows machine, whatever. In my eyes, I want it to be just as kick-ass, and I think everyone, deserves that opportunity.
Yeah, I'll definitely chime in around there. One thing that I have checked a lot of environments. Some people are distro hoppers. I'm an environment hopper. I'm always sitting there going, man, I wanna just break my system and build it back up into something new. And so I'm constantly fluxing between stuff. I love GNOME for the fact of, GNOME is really beautiful. I'll totally say that about that, Preacher. GNOME is a beautiful environment. KDE can be really gorgeous. But lately I've been having this thing where I got so used to tiling window managers, I'm having a really hard time staying away from them. I'll leave a tiling window manager and install GNOME or Enlightenment or OpenBox, and within a couple of days I'll be back on another tiling. So I think that's one of those places where I'll call home, just because I like being able to use keyboard shortcuts to open all sorts of applications. I like, in some ways, looking at a machine that doesn't look, because it's about pretty in my eyes. And I think that text in terminal windows and all that, I think that's pretty. It makes me feel like I'm in one of those sci-fi movies staring at all the lines, whatever. It's just my thing.
I think also when it comes down to Linux and BSG in general, where else are you going to find the ability to find so many different window managers and DEs to your taste and your choice that you can find and experiment with? Where the hell else are you going to find that? Okay, where my desktop will look totally 180 toward maybe Morningstar's or Preacher desktop or Irish's desktop is Linux and BSD, and that's about choice. And Windows and Mac, it's kind of baked in, and that's all you get, and you can configure it the best you can, but that's all you're gonna get.
Yeah, I also feel like the nice thing about these window managers and these environments is if you're one of those people that likes to mess with lines of code and configure little itty bitty changes like transparency on a window, or changing focus with keyboard shortcuts, or changing your GTK theme, or building your GTK theme, there's a vast ocean of environments that we touched on last time. And you said it's about choice. And I can choose to actually go in and write my config files in a language like Lua,
Exactly. I was going to also point out that I am just like you, also Morningstar. Whenever there's a new desktop that comes out, like KD Plasma Next, or the new GNOME 3.14, which I do have on my desktop, there's still a little part of me that just doesn't feel right. I need those key combinations, and that I used to be a distro hopper, and then when I found Arch, I stayed there, and then I'm like, okay, what environment do I want? Do I want a heavy desktop environment, or should I go with the lighter weight desktop environment, or should I just go into the tiling managers? And every time I might use my GNOME on my desktop, it feels a little weird, but I definitely will call also tiling managers home for sure.
Yeah, I definitely like being able to configure everything and write different scripting languages and all this stuff. Speaking of scripting and languages in particular, one thing we were going to talk about today in our show was Python, which is for one, it was one of my favorite things about it. Every time I see Python, I think of Flying Circus, but that's another whole side story.
Well, wasn't Python named after that famous British comedy troupe?
It totally was, and that's one thing we were going to mention. One thing I was also going to say about Python too is that if you're new to programming languages, it's actually a great place to jump off. But yeah, we can totally touch on the fact that yeah, Python was, pardon me, Python is a paradigm. It's a multi-paradigm, object-oriented, and imperative functional procedure. It's reflective. It was designed by Guido van Rossum, and the developer is the Python Software Foundation. It showed up in like 1991, but since then it's used for a lot of different applications. I think things like Play on Linux are written in Python.
Yeah, there's a bunch of plugins. It is a really easy language to pick up. In school, the language that I had to learn was Java, which is good. A lot of stuff is based off of Java, phones, other stuff. But when I taught myself how to write in Python, I definitely grasped the concepts much quicker. You could argue, yeah, because I already had the base in Java, but I just got the syntax quicker, and it was just easier for me to grasp it.
Hey now.
Go ahead, kleptos.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, obviously Python is not better than what I learned as a kid, and that was Fortran and Cobalt. It cannot be better than Fortran and Cobalt. Those are the best there is as far as programming languages, in my humble opinion. Not. My God, I use so many different applications that are run in Python. I mean, not only are they very easy to use, and Python's very easy to learn, but Python in the Linux ecosystem is in everything. I mean, you don't even know half the things that are running on your Linux system. They're running on Python, besides running on C. And so, a great sort of way to learn things. And also, really, when it comes down to Linux, it's in every damn thing. And so, if you want to understand the Linux guts, Python is a good way to go about it. It was much easier than how I went about it with Fortran and Cobalt. Oh, God.
Yeah, I remember Cobalt. I had to do Cobalt at school too, and that one was horrible. But I agree. I think Python and Linux and open source definitely go hand in hand.
One of the reasons I personally wanted to talk about Python today, besides Monty Python, I'm going to say it again. I don't know. I love all those movies, Meaning of Life, Life of Brian. But one thing I wanted to bring it up for is when I started programming, I was learning on Pascal and like Turbo C++. And so my take on programming is very different. And this is a language that in the near future I'd like to pick up and learn a little bit about, because it's going to give me a new perspective on the object-oriented programming in a way that might be a little easier for me to understand than some other languages, being that I haven't programmed professionally.
Yeah, if you guys, if anyone out there definitely wants to, pick up a book and learn it, the way that I'm doing it is called Learn Python the Hard Way. The title might be deceiving, but it is a nice step-by-step guide. It goes what you need to do to create your first Hello World program, all the way up to like an intermediate program for sure. It is a very good book, and I have it on an e-book for sure.
Yeah, the other thing especially about the language itself, is Python is intended to be a highly readable language. It's made so it kind of doesn't have that cluttered visual layout that you might get if you're looking at Lua or C, and frequently using like English keywords and punctuation.
Honestly, really, I think that the beauty of Python and the beauty of open source is, comparatively to let's say some company making a program, there's so many eyes on it, and if there's so many different eyes on it and so many different people working on it, then it's going to be better software. And I think that really comes down to Python and different languages anyway, you're going to have more eyes on it. Can you imagine you're sitting in some corporate office where there's 20 programmers working on something, and whether or not it has bugs or exploits, or comparatively to open source program that's on GitHub that has like 5,000 different eyes on one piece of software? Of course it's going to be better.
It's a good trend. Going into another thing of like the differences between open source and proprietary.
Yeah,
The eternal battle. Open source versus proprietary. It's like good versus evil or something.
What are your thoughts on that, Kleptos? Saying good versus evil. Do you think that might be a myth, or is that something you feel is the reality of it, or?
I was being facetious, honestly. I love open source, but at sometimes proprietary software is necessary in life. I'm not one of these people that's all in on everything. I think it really comes down to not only preference but ease of use. Take Netflix for example. Okay, it's DRM, and you're paying for it. But hey, I can watch some awesome documentaries or some awesome TV shows, or whether or not it's LibreOffice versus Microsoft Office. LibreOffice is a lot better. It's open source, but at times some people use both, and so I'm not really Nazi on open source versus proprietary. I think it's up to your use and how you want to use it. I think open source in the long term will be more successful than the proprietary software, but I do buy software. There's a software program I use for backup called Image for Linux that cost me $29, and it is completely awesome. It is not open source, but it all comes down to how you want to use it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say you can be as extreme as, Stallman, who doesn't do anything proprietary, all the way down to, like a Bill Gates person who just uses proprietary stuff. It's good to be in the happy medium where there's some programs, a lot of people use Skype out there, and that is proprietary. But, as many people's views around the world, is if it works, doesn't matter if it's open source or proprietary.
Yeah, I'm really on the fence about it. Like I see both sides of the story. I definitely see that if I bought the hardware, should I really have to pay out the nose for the software? But on the other side, I see that the developers are trying to make a living. Being somebody who's written a couple of small applications, it takes a lot of time. So if you're writing a massive program like OpenShot or Ardour, and you have the ability to open source it, awesome. But I also respect that people have to make a living, and what's their time worth to people. So I really am on the fence. I think that if it's proprietary, I like to know that it's by a company or by a name or by a developer that I have some faith in.
Yeah. Yeah, Preacher, what are your views? Do you think that there's like some sort of like hidden war between proprietary and open source? And if so, what side do you fall upon?
Well, I would like to sit here and be able to say that I use only open source, software, but I don't. I'm kind of like, I think it was Morningstar, on the fence. If there's proprietary software out there that does the job of what I'm looking for, I myself, I have no problem using that, and I don't criticize those that do. I wish I could sit here and say, I can find open source software for everything I do, but I just can't. I guess that's just a downside. I don't know what you'd call it.
I think, Preacher, there is the whole thing of vendor lock-in, between the open source and proprietary. If the proprietary software is not locking you into the point where you're being abused by them and they're trying to suck you for money, is a different story. I mean, whether these people who, buy a Microsoft Office and then that's all they can buy, well, now LibreOffice is available and then you have an alternative. So it really comes down to how the software is being used and if being abused or not being abused. Because there is alternative open source software being developed every day. It's just that we need to push it, and we need to support people that are programming and making those great pieces of software. And so it's one thing if people use open source software every day and those programmers are starving. I think that's bad.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
my big thing too is knowing that that I know that I'm not being abused by the software. That's my big thing about proprietary.
Yeah, I can add. I don't even use Windows, so I don't even install Wine on my machine because, in my eyes, that's just a tool for me to use, Microsoft compatible programs. And there's some people have no problem gaming in Wine. I'm just saying for me, yeah, I don't look at it, as far as no one's taking advantage of me or whatever, because I don't use those type programs, anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, this is definitely a very touchy subject for sure. You can definitely make arguments on one way or the other. So this one will definitely not be solved anytime soon.
No, definitely not. I do think it's an eternal debate, and it will continue. And we probably can't do it honestly, real justice because it's going on and it will continue. But it's good to look at. It's good to see, what side of the camp each other is on, and really it comes down to how you're going to use it and what you're going to use it for. And so, I don't care if someone's using proprietary software. I kind of use both. I'm kind of stuck that way. And so I'm not going to thumb my finger at somebody else for what they're doing. It all comes up to, what their aspirations are and what they want to do with it. And so, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, same here. If someone, I'm not criticizing those that do. Don't take it that way. I've always been, to each their own. Whatever serves one, I'm happy for them. It's just, I may not follow the same path. That's all.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, plus some people, their jobs. Like some people I know work in a field where they'd love to use Linux, and their job makes them have to boot into either a virtual machine or a dual boot. So you're right. It's not something that can be solved anytime soon. It's not something that may ever be solved. But it is definitely cool to hear people's opinions and people's perspectives.
Here's a good example of this. Okay, let's say you have a certification with Microsoft, and you want to be gold certified by Microsoft. Microsoft makes it known to those people that they cannot use any software that is not Microsoft software if you want to be gold certified. And so for a lot of people that are doing business in shops that use Windows and trying to make money off of that and trying to feed their kids, Microsoft wants it known that you must use Microsoft software. You can't use Linux software. You can't use open source software. And so that in itself is vendor lock-in, sort of forcing you to do that. And if you look at how Microsoft is treating people who want to move to Linux and different countries that want to move to Linux in their sort of PR campaign, it's utter madness. But I agree with you, Preacher. We use what we want to use, and we don't worry about how other people use it. And I hope that this serves as an education towards that.
Yeah, speaking of education, I think that we all have a lot of questions. If we're ready to talk to Preacher about and learn a little bit about how the LDC started and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say the LDC kind of started myself and several other people. We all met hanging out in the Bodhi Linux community. We all joined Bodhi about the same time, not the same hour, of course, but nevertheless about the same time, and just, I don't know, developed an online friendship, so to say, and it continued and grew. In the early days, Valtum had some friends that had a TeamSpeak server. We all started on TeamSpeak, but moved over to Mumble because of the open source part. But, that friendship grew into what is now the Linux Distro Community. I mean, it was like one of the things I'd noticed, along with Valtum and a couple of the others that were the co-founders in that group. There's about 4 or 5 of us. The Linux communities in general were known to just flame you. You get eaten alive, and we noticed, the rude and mean behavior in a lot of the communities. And I'm not talking of the Bodhi community. That's one of the most polite online communities I have ever run across in my entire life. And my hat's off to that bunch. If it's still the same people, I understand they had a breakup here not so long ago. But, it's always been my philosophy and outlook that it's just as easy to be nice to people as it is to be mean to them. So why be mean and rude? We can all do that. And we all longed, those of us that started the LDC, for a place for anyone of any knowledge level running any distro to seek friendly and polite, service. Why be mean to these people? You're just running them away from Linux. And that's why I'm in this game anyway. I've never been about promoting any distro or knowledge. You need to be this smart to run Linux, or you should be running this distro. I've always been in it for the mere reason of promoting Linux. That's it. If you're on any distro, I'm one happy camper. Just for the fact you're using Linux, and we just started it for people of a like mind to have a friendly place to come. No matter what their knowledge level, they would be treated, with decency and be respected.
So, question for you. I'll jump in. You were talking a little bit about the philosophy of the Linux distro community, which is great. And I'm curious as to when you finally made the jump from like Windows or Mac or whatever you came from to Linux. How did that happen? What made you look into Linux and make that jump?
Well, it was a virus. I had been dual booting. I started using Linux around 1998, and I dual booted between the two between 98 and 2006, which somebody mentioned earlier. There was no Googling. That's true. You pretty much had to find your own answers, and Lord knows I've been kicked out of so many communities. I had even joined the Slackware community at one time, and it hurt my feelings. Even as an adult, those people told me, "You dumbass, you don't even deserve to own a computer." But I did get a virus in 2006, and the only way to rid myself of it was a reformat. And that was the needle in the haystack for me. I thought, the hell with this. Linux is doing anything I want to do. I wasn't a big time gamer or anything, but I made the switch to just use Linux exclusively at that point, and have ever since. And I've not looked back. Haven't missed anything in my eyes. Love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If every community could be like the LDC community, I think Linux would prosper. We fall so many times into these different schisms, or whether you're System D or you're against System D, or you're for Ubuntu or you're against Ubuntu. All that crap does not matter a hill of beans. What matters is what you use, and how you use it, and how you treat other people. I think that's the whole thing. I fell into LDC back in February, and I really had pretty well knowledge on Linux, but these guys were very cool and very nice to me and helped me out when I had issues with Arch, and I just sort of stuck there. And I think it's an awesome community, and I wanted to support it.
Yeah, I don't know if I should mention this on the show, but I caught a lot of flack from other people over the years in the LDC for the mere reason I ran Ubuntu. And I ran Ubuntu solely for the purpose of, I wanted the new people, the new users to Linux to feel welcome, not be swarmed by people running Arch, Gentoo, and whatnot, Slackware. I want them to feel like, oh man, all these people using so-and-so distro, they're going to look down on me, treat me like a beginner. And I ran Ubuntu the entire time that I was connected with the LDC as far as administrator and whatnot. I just wanted them, the new users, to feel welcome and that somebody was using the distro they chose. It's and I don't mean that in a bad way. And the people that's running LDC now, they're still holding to the original ideals, and my hat's off to them. I'm glad they're doing such a good job getting the word out.
That speaks a lot too to what this whole conversation and then the hardships that you go through trying to get answers when you're new to Linux. It speaks a lot to the inspiration that you had to start the Linux Distro Community. When you first got the Linux Distro Community started, what were some of the major hurdles? Like, was it finding users? Was it getting all the servers and stuff set up for the website? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I will say though, right off the bat, it wasn't just me. I mean, it was 4 or 5 individuals starting the LDC. It wasn't Preacher. It was a group of people. I do want to make that clear. The biggest hurdle we had in the day was it was hard as hell to get anyone to voice chat, here on Mumble, this little server. And I can see that. Like, we've kind of, myself and Valtum and some of the others, we still hang out in the Google Hangouts. And it's just, each step from IRC up is a hurdle in the Linux community. People tend to want to stay anonymous as much as they can. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying it was a hurdle. I mean, we were lucky to get 2 or 3 people into the Mumble servers in the day, and now it's every day we've got 7 or 8 regulars, and some days more than that. So it's just like each step of losing that, I can't say the word, anonymity, however you say it, each step of that is another hurdle. But as people get used to it more and more, it's coming around. I feel the whole process was a huge success, considering it started with just 4 or 5 people, and now we're over 1,400 members. Kudos to that.
Yeah, that is really awesome. That's like one of those American success stories. You just start off with, 4 or 5 people, and it's like, hopefully it'll grow to like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 members, and maybe just become like one of those, oh, hey, you're switching to Linux, hey, come to the LDC, and they'll definitely help you out with anything that you need. They're the go-to people. Yeah.
And we all started out we didn't start this community as a joke, but one of our original communities, if my memory serves me correct, was something like the Beer Drinkers of Bodie. We would meet each evening. But yeah, it's been a good fun. Yeah, it's been a good role though, really has, and couldn't have done it without each and every member. I mean, I just smile each day when I look at the numbers. Every day, it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's gotta be really cool to see a dream come to life like that.
I guess one final question for me is, when you guys did start this community, was there any like naysayers, like, oh, that kind of stuff's not going to work, or you can't, no, you have to be on this fence or that fence type of mentality?
No, we didn't have any naysayers, so to say, but we have had, within the ranks, even the ranks of the admins, the creators, how far on the open source software fence one should go. Like it was said earlier, we're not going to answer that in 2 or 3 hours. Everybody has their preferences and their ideals.
Yeah, one thing I really love about the LDC is that the intention was clear to me when I joined the LDC, that this isn't a place where you're on this camp, or you're the elite or you're the non-elite. That you were, I felt welcome. I felt like a community member, and I feel like that really speaks to what you guys all wanted to do in the beginning. I think it's been a great project.
Yeah, I will say, I've always held the thought that I really hope everyone's experience in Linux to be as pleasant as mine has been. I really hope that for everyone. Of course, everyone won't have a pleasant experience, but at least I do hope that for everyone. I've never looked back. It served me well. I just hope everyone can find that happiness, within Linux.
I think the cool part of the LDC, besides all the great services they have and having nice people and friendly people and willing to help you, is the experimentation and the learning about Linux. I mean, these guys in the IRC and the forums are learning, new ideas and new things on Linux to do, and experimenting on Linux. And I think that in a way, not only not helps the new users, but the experienced users. I mean, I thought, I had a good grasp on Linux. I came in here and I'm like, damn, I'm a newbie again. But I think that is totally awesome about the LDC, and I hope that in the future that it succeeds beyond your wildest dreams.
Yep. I've got to admit, usually 3 or 4 times a week, I find new stuff just by being a fly on the wall in the IRC channel, or just by listening here. I find different things I can do. So I'm still learning and love it. Love every bit.
Yeah, I can really speak to that too, because there's been some IRC rooms where I'm kind of nervous to ask a question without being bombarded with criticism for not knowing something. Whereas in the LDC, if somebody says something, they go, hey, that sounds like something I want to look into. I feel more than encouraged to even just ask the question right out. And then I can actually learn more because of the mannerisms of the people.
Yep, absolutely.
No pressure. That's the whole thing. No pressure. You idiot. You loser. You don't know that. I was having a conversation with PDQ and IQ Base on the RCs, and they were talking about ZSH, and I'm like, what? What's ZSH? And I've been on Bash for a number of years, and then I adopted ZSH and love it absolutely. And so, no pressure, experimentation, learning, nice people. You can't help but succeed at that point.
Yeah, and also, it's amazing how, full circle some things can come, because, Preacher, you and those, the founders of the LDC, started in the Bodhi and, forged friendships and created, friendships that will last forever. And, I'm finding myself, being in the LDC and doing just about the same thing, forging friendships that I will definitely have for a very long time.
Yeah, that's just, a byproduct, a great byproduct, I think. I mean, I've actually, started out online friendship with these people that have developed into true life friends. And that's saying a lot. At least I think it is.
Yeah, one of the things that really has been interesting to me about the LDC is even when it comes down to on the forums, we're always trying to find ways to get people more involved and make people feel welcome and grow as a community. It's not one person holding the candle saying, I this is how we're going to do it. It really has, from my experience, been a community project. And that's those are the kind of projects I like seeing, is when somebody comes in with an idea and you let it to develop, and you watch how great a community you can really become.
I think this is really awesome. Not only to talk about new stuff about Linux and file systems, but really to get the whole gist and history about the LDC. And the whole idea of the podcast is about Linux fun, experimentation, and learning. But really, bringing new people into the LDC. And I think that if there's a place that you can go, that you got no pressure, no elitism, my God, man, that's where you want to be. I can't even tell you the horrors I've experienced in the Linux Distro community that made me not even want to use Linux. But it is what it is, man, and I'm enjoying myself at the moment.
Yeah, speaking of the community, when we stepped down, we've always promoted this community as a community run by the community.
Well, thanks a lot, Preacher, for letting us ask you all these questions.
Yeah, definitely. I did not know that you guys started in the Bodhi forums. That was really cool.
We'll poke and prod you again someday, we hope.
Well,
Definitely.
I just hope I've been an acceptable guest. I really like what you new people are doing in the community, and you have my support all the way.
Yeah, it's definitely the same kind of thing, and the goal of this podcast is not just to provide information and applications that you might want to check out and news and other things, but it's also to let people know that about the Linux distro community and what we're about. So to have you on the show and being one of the founding members has been definitely an asset.
Yeah,
Definitely.
before the show ends, I would like PDQ's paying attention. I can see her in IRC. PDQ, who has the credentials to log into, post tweets to the Twitter account? Can we get someone like Irish or Morningstar those privileges, maybe?
While we're doing that, I would also like to let people know where to find or how to find us, how to find the forums in the IRC. If you go to linuxdistrocommunity.com, you can check us out there. We're also on Freenode at pound Linux Distro Community. And I would like to say while we're doing this, if you like the show, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And you guys have other stuff you want to add as well?
Yeah, just we do also have an audio version only, so we can definitely put that in the description of the video or however you guys are finding the video for sure.
And we do take requests on applications or environments or whatever. And so if you're interested in something and you want us to flesh it out further, let us know.
Yeah, definitely leave a comment or jump on the forums or jump on IRC. Where there's usually one of us around, you'll catch one of us, and we can definitely try to get your suggestion into the show.
Definitely.
Well, guys, thanks. It's been a hell of a show, and glad to have everybody here. Preacher, thanks so much for coming on again. Thanks, guys, for being here. And unless there's anything else, I think I'll go for a walk.
Sliced bread and gin for everyone.
Thank you. I like gin. And thank everyone for having me.